Cindy? Okay. I did get fancy chairs this year. You know, we get chip here, we get fancy chairs. Usually we get stools.
Are you supposed to be over here?
Oh, well, that's where I usually sit.
You lost it.
Go ahead.
I thought you were on the other side over here. Down there.
You see me sitting at the end.
Yeah. Well, I guess we're not gonna get an official introduction from HRIA, so I'll start it off. My name's Rick Love, and I wanna thank the Hot Rod Industry Alliance for putting this program together for us, and really thank you all for taking time out of your day at SEMA to join us. I'm, given my age, I am not prone to use the term awesome very often, but I think you'll agree we have a panel that justifies the term awesome today. And it's really great that these guys would give their time to come spend some time with us. We're gonna try to have a good time. It's usually not too hard. And before I start, I do have to, special thanks to Troy. I'm gonna give one quick story first, because Troy's been a very common, not common, you're never common, Troy, but he's been a part of our panel many times. And I called him up and asked him to be a part of the panel again this year, and he said, man, I really enjoy it, but the car's not finished, we're not gonna come to SEMA this year, so call me next year. I said, Troy, we're trying to get Chip to be a part of the panel this year. He said, call me. So after we got Chip signed up for the
So
panel.
Rick called me and said, hey, if you don't make it, Troy's wrong.
I called Troy up and I said, Chip's in. Troy said, I'll be there. He said, I got some food stories that nobody's ever heard.
And Mike and Jim and me call each other.
Yeah.
So Troy flew in this morning from Midway in Chicago and is flying out this evening. So he came in just for this panel today. So we need to give a special.
Bobby goes out right that way.
That's exactly right.
I think, normally we start off with introducing each one of these guys, but I don't think any of these guys need an introduction. I think everybody here knows who they are. And so what we're gonna try to do today, as we always do, is keep this conversational and try to find out some things that we've never heard before that you may not know about these guys or how they got to where they are. But we also want to allow time for you to ask some questions as well. All these guys have a wealth of knowledge, most of them have a wealth of knowledge and are always happy to share. So if you have some questions, we've got Mr. John McLeod here from Holly in the back, and he's got a microphone. And if you raise a hand, he'll get that microphone to you, and we'll get some questions too. So maybe we'll start out with like they did on the dating game years ago and ask guys, what's something about you that most people wouldn't know?
I slept with my brother in the same bed. And what I didn't know was he wet his pants out. And he had a nickname called Speedy Pete.
That's not from Wisconsin.
Yeah. Flip that
And
around.
how come when you stopped sleeping together, your bed was wet?
I slept in the crib till I was 14.
Mike, it's your turn now since Jim started that.
Jeez, I don't know.
You could tell me you didn't have a car when you got out of the Navy.
Yeah, I was in the Navy. I came home on leave, and I had a '69 GTO at the time. Went in the basement. Where's my car? I sold it. Where's the money? I spent it. So yeah, I used to have a '69 GTO. So not anymore.
Wow. Bobby, you're next.
Oh, I can't spell, I can't read.
I said something most people won't know.
Oh.
Cindy brought it from the nursing home.
Why am I here? The word worst part is Bobby is the only one I told I was gonna ask that question, and he's the last one to have an answer ready.
You have told everything about me that anybody doesn't know, I'm sure. Hey, Chip.
How old are you? Hey, knows how old Bobby is.
I'm 68 years old, and I knew you when you were just a little big guy.
We met when I started at Boys, and I was 28 years old.
This
Started
guy,
at Boys.
you weren't gay at that time, no worries.
Bobby? Is that Bobby?
He asked me that when I met him.
Pete isn't here anymore, but Treporis is not with us anymore, so you have to take that up. to somebody
That's
that
gonna
has
be the
it.
calmest thing said tonight, I'm gonna tell you that, I've been heard it back here. You tell it, Troy.
What?
What we don't know about you.
I ain't had a car of my own since '94. My regular station wagon, my last car.
Who's been trying to get you to do it?
I know, I'm getting closer. 3 kids for college. Me and Chip raced Baja together in '07, that's pretty cool. A lot of people don't know about that.
Very few people know that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think,
A lot of fun.
I think Kyle Tucker got the idea from y'all, right?
Yeah, now he gets to go every year. Yeah.
Cause he can drive.
No, Chip was the one that destroyed it.
Oh.
I drove in front of him. Yeah.
I'll tell you we were filming Overhaul, and we were supposed to be there the day before the race. But it's the only car, we did that show, and we built the car in 8 days. It's the only car that went into day 9. We built a hot rod, and I said, from the very beginning of the show, I said, no hot rods on the show, because you have to fabricate everything. If it's restoration, we can buy the parts and paint them, finish them, and put it together. But it was the hot rod that we did at Hot Rod Magazine studio, and it went into day 9. I had gone all 9 days without any sleep. Once we finished, we gave the car back. I jumped in the car with Bud Brutzman and somebody else drove. I slept on the way there. We got out, they showed me a couple things in this book, and they showed me that if there's something that you're supposed to, a hazard.
Right.
I'm looking at an 8.5 by 11 book, and the hazard is a skull and crossbone. That's a full page. And I'm thinking, they said, okay, if you see these on the monitor, because I'm going to be the navigator first. And Bud Brutzman's driving. He was the producer of Overhaul. So I'm thinking, if I see this big skull and crossbone, I got to say something. So we're in this thing, and we're running along, and I see like 3 little tiny skull and crossbones, and I thought, those are tiny, don't need to worry about those. And all of a sudden we go off this drop off, and we drop about 15 feet, and Bud's yelling and screaming at me. There were no warnings, no skull and crossbones? Nope. And I knew, okay, they're little tiny ones. I hadn't done any pre-running, I'd never been down there, but that was one of the most fun trips I've ever had, and Troy was there with us.
Y'all did pre-run? I mean, normally.
I didn't either for some stupid reason. Yeah, we got educated quick. I'm the idiot that started the thing, running through the zipper in the town, where you get up on the hill and everybody's in front of you, the guy said, just drive right out and get out of the way. We're novices, and it was awesome.
It was a blast. I'd go again.
Oh, absolutely.
I think a lot of people don't realize that overhaul that was on, TV is such a false medium, but having worked with you on several of those overhauls, I mean, that was an 8-day build. I mean, there was not a lot of sleep except on the sets and all that. Those were truly, and I gotta tell you, there's no one that worked harder than Chip. I mean, whatever had to be done, if it was welding floorboards on a rusty car like that, I mean, but that truly was an 8-day build back then. I mean, there wasn't the magic of TV.
We had day 1 through 7, and then D-Day, which was delivery day. That was the 8th day. Troy did a couple of
I
those.
made it through 2 of them, I was smarter. I did the first 2, I'm like, yep, ain't for me.
Bud called me when we were starting to do that, and wanted to know if, we talked for a while, wanted to know if we had an airport there. I said, yeah, but you gotta call first, we gotta get cattle off of it. He started laughing, he said, that's what I want. I said, that's the reason I'm not gonna do that.
It was crazy.
We talked about D-Day, we had that in school. they had, a thing called A-Day, and if you got A's, they'd pick you up on a bus and they'd take you to the water park. And then if somebody come up with B-Day, so they take you halfway to the water park and make you walk home. I never got to go to the water park.
You know, it's like, when you have multiple kids, it's hard to name the favorites, but of all the builds y'all have done, is there a certain build that really for y'all, to say, man, if there was one car I would have liked to have kept for myself, is there one for y'all that would have been one that you would have loved to kept and still have?
Everyone. No, for me, it would be, Impression that we did for Ken Reister. Because that car, I think, was the best representation of what Foose Design is capable of, and it was completely designed from scratch. We didn't, we bought an engine, bought a transmission, and a center section for a rear end. Absolutely every single part was hand built, including body.
Yeah, that entire car was, sorry, and you didn't start with anything but cement. Troy?
Probably it's George's Torino. That was a pretty cool car, and he drove across country a couple times, and he just recently sold it. I probably should have spoke up, and I don't know what I've done with it, but
That car was awesome.
it was fun, and but most of them are
Wayne sold it too.
Huh?
Wayne sold it.
Yeah, exactly. But
A little bit of a markup.
yeah, so we'll see. But that would have been actually pretty cool. Me and George got a good history and stuff, but maybe someday. Bobby?
I still have them. I like them so well, I bought them back, so I've still got most of them, but,
We got about 200 cars out there.
no, I don't have 200.
Dark slopes.
Yeah.
No, I don't think so.
The Alloway compound, there's quite a few cars out there.
I did get most of them back, I've traded around and got them, but probably that Roadster that, I went out with the builders with the 15. That was
An
a
AMR.
car. That's a cool car, customer of mine in South Dakota's got Larry Olson.
I don't know, we did we did a black one. We did a black car once.
Yeah.
I would have to say it's probably that blue from earlier a couple of years ago, or that green car, I should say, that kind of army green car. That car went overseas and nobody really got to see that car, but that was a pretty cool car.
Yep.
Went to Russia, didn't it?
Yeah,
Yeah, y'all haven't seen it since.
no, or you might see it on the news.
For me, they're all kind of special and they all kind of suck a little bit. No, just the work that goes in them when you're kind of at the end, but sure nice to see them again years later. And there's something about the Chevelle we did that was just the recoil. It was just a car that,
The 66.
yeah, it was just a little different at the time for us, and it's fun to see these cars again. So no matter which one you do, it's kind of cool to go back and go, oh, we were starting out there, weren't we?
Well, I agree with that, because like, people always ask, like, my early cars were weirdo and weird colors, and I mean, I don't.
You were eating different.
I'm a little bit more creative than Bobby. But you get them back, you want to change the whole thing. So
Yeah.
It's better off not even having them back.
Right.
Then you're kind of ruining it, but I don't want to redo them all, because you get better all the time, so
Well,
you want to go
they
back.
were never our cars in the first place,
Right.
so we probably never get it back.
Yeah, a couple of mine were, but.
I didn't really know Chip or Bobby and Moose that works, if anybody knows Troy. He was kind of a high school, the next town over, and since they didn't really have any good looking women in Christian Center, he was down at our high school a lot. But I knew Moose and Troy was doing a show in Madison, and he did the Predator, and Jim and I hadn't really even started building cars, and I was like, I couldn't even wrap my head around what I was looking at. And it's just so cool. And it was like, oh. And then we got to go and meet Troy a little bit and hang out with Jack and drink way too much and chop with Thunder and wore the battery down 3 times in the backseat of that thing. And so yeah, I think you're always impressed more with other people's work than what you do.
The greatest part of the industry is the people. It's amazing the people you the opportunity to meet and spend time with us. They're just all such good people, everybody.
I think that's a really important thing, that so many of the young builders we see, the guys coming in, they look at building these cars as a competition between everybody, you know, and it's all a competition. And you look at you guys that have been in this for so long, and y'all get ideas from each other, y'all bounce things off each other, I know, y'all look at each other's cars, and I think that's a big thing that a lot of the young guys can learn, that other guys in the industry, it's not just a competition, it's, everybody can learn from each other.
Rick, they've gotta do that if they're gonna thrive. I mean, if you're gonna be successful, we need everybody here.
Yeah.
And, you know, I wanna take a minute to thank these guys I did a show in Nashville this last September, Triple Crown, and I invited, these guys to come, and quite a bit more, very humbling that everybody I asked came, and me and Chip talked before I did it, and I got a friend of mine, Gary Casey, he really was a great big part of that. I couldn't have done it without them, but the people that came, I mean, the fellowship that was there, it was absolutely wonderful that, all these guys, and we're all friends, and it worked out. I mean, young guys, if you're just now starting, you need to get along with these other builders, because it will help you down the road 100%, because if you think you know everything, you don't. I'm telling you, somebody else knows a little bit more than you do.
It's a lot different now, like when we all kind of get going on, because we all share the same customers too. And every one of us share customers, but, with social media, it's a lot different. You know, that's the thing, it seems like it's more of a competition, you know, with, when we were doing it, it was just a lot different.
Like you said, we shared the same customers, but we're still friends.
Yeah.
That guy was, you were talking about a couple of different guys, but those guys, they each come to us for a different reason.
Absolutely.
Make your own style. Don't copy Troy, don't copy Mikey, Jim. For gosh sakes, don't copy Chip. But no, I'm joking. Just do your own deal. That's, and if it's gonna work, it's gonna work.
You know, that was one of the conversations that I had with Boyd many times. Boyd would really want to protect, what we were doing at Boyd's, and he looked at other builders as competition. And I would tell Boyd, I never viewed any other builders as competitors. I viewed everybody as a potential best friend, because it's not often you find somebody with the same passion we have. And that's how all these guys here, you got the same passion I do, so why wouldn't we be friends? If we grew up and went to the same high school.
Yeah, we'd be taking Kathleen.
Exactly.
Got off suddenly.
I feel lucky and blessed to be able to make a living doing something that's 100% unnecessary. The world doesn't need another hot rod. But the greatest thing about this whole industry is that it's 100% passion driven. And we have customers that are willing to pay us to build their automotive dreams. It's phenomenal. We're all very lucky.
You think some of that comes from the fact that your dad was in the business before you, so you saw a part of the business before you got into it, you were seeing it through your dad. I mean, he was a very accomplished.
It's true. I'm still living my childhood.
Yeah.
I grew up, my father ran Gene Winfield's shop. And so I grew up going on the weekends, I was with my dad there. And the shop name was AMT, but you know, the plastic model kits that you put together. Well, at AMT, at the big shop, I would go on the weekends and I watched the guys there building these full-size cars that would later become the model kits. So I get to watch them build these kits, and then later I got to put together the same little cars that my dad and Gene and the crew built. And then at the same time, Mattel was building Hot Wheels of those cars, so I always had Hot Wheels in my pocket, and I was building the plastic model kits. And like I said, today, I'm still doing the same thing. I haven't grown up yet.
But you know, what Jeannie and your dad were doing, I mean, that spread, those plastic model kits and those Hot Wheels, they were a part of what spread that nationwide. I mean, because otherwise it'd have been Southern California with those guys. And those guys were so influential in getting that. I mean, they built cars for the movies, and they built all that too, and that helped spread it across the country. That was huge.
This was.
That was huge. Do we have anybody that want to ask before we can keep going for this, but if anybody has a question, we want to make sure we get, sometimes we get shorted, but maybe guys don't get a chance to.
Not everybody wants it.
All right, I'm gonna start with you, Chip. What's the best advice when you were getting started out? What's the best advice that somebody gave you, that you didn't follow, that you wish you had?
That I didn't follow? The best advice that I didn't follow?
Besides choosing another career?
That's a tough question.
You know, I was lucky just growing up and working with my father and with the people that I did work with. And, you know, at my dad's shop, when we got a project, we did the entire project from start to finish. You know, you took it apart, you fixed it, you did whatever you do, you made modifications, you painted it, you assembled it. But when I went to Boyd's is when I learned that we got one guy, all he's doing is chassis. We got another guy, all he's doing is wiring. Here's the guy that all he does is paint. And it was the individual guys that were doing each of the things, and it was, you know, that made it so much faster at Boyd's. We had 24 people working in the shop.
He almost had set up as an assembly line.
It was amazing what we were getting done. And he was smart because he would bid a car for less than it would cost to build, but we had the best cars in the industry being built with Boyd wheels and products on them. And it wasn't until Boyd's went away, unfortunately, you know, that's when I really saw that there's a lot of talented people that can build cars, and all those shops really started to grow and started to prosper. And you know, it was just, I was lucky and blessed, like I said, to have the career that I've had and to learn the things that I've learned and working with all the people. But the biggest thing was what I learned from Boyd was hire the best to do the best of every part of the project.
I think another thing Boyd did that a lot of guys weren't doing back then either is Boyd always started with the best car he could. He'd go get a really clean, a really clean restored car to work in.
They weren't even necessarily restored, they were original paint cars. Like, you want us to cut this up?
But he started that and Boyd realized.
Do that, no one
Yeah, right, it's solid from the windows up.
Then you were spending the money on modification, not restoration before you modify. You know, you find a car for, I'm gonna pay $5,000 for this car instead of $15,000, but you just put 25 grand into it, getting it to a point that you could modify it.
Yeah, but I think Boyd was one of the first to do that when he bought it. I mean, he was.
You look at me for it.
Yes.
You know, we were in, I bought a Vicky in '83 at the Roadster show, Father's Day Roadster show. It was laid on its side and had a whole quarter-pound rusted out of it. Nobody in California wanted it. Seriously, it was when I went to River with. Because it was sitting there and it was rusty. I had never seen rocker panels before. I was thinking, well, they had rocker panels, and I think it's good. We used to put it on display for the longest.
Isn't that right?
That's right.
There were good cars to start with up in Wisconsin, though.
Nice.
Troy, did you have either good or bad advice? Good or bad advice?
Boyd Brazil, when we first met him, my dad was my first point of contact, is like, you guys are doing a good job, but you need to make parts and sell parts. He didn't listen, and he told me the same thing, and I didn't listen. So 3 generations go by, and then my son Jack, we started doing a little parts business finally, but Roy told me that every time I met him for 20 years, he'd say the same thing. You started building parts yet? He goes, you're gonna get old building cars. So, yeah, that stuck in my head, but.
What parts does Roy make?
Nothing. That's exactly why.
It's always easier to give advice than follow.
Yeah, so that was something he told me, and it took 3 generations to listen, but, it was good. But like, back to the Boyd thing, I mean, he was the reason I started doing it. I mean, I was fortunate in the early 90s, I met Chip in 90 and then hung around the shop quite a bit in the early 90s out there. Boyd was, really good to me, and that was just Bobby was in it, a good time to start because it was, Boyd and Gray Baskerville, you could go out there now, people don't know who Gray Baskerville was, but he was Hot Rod magazine.
He was.
And to get on the shirt.
People know who Gray was.
Yeah.
He was Hot Rod magazine.
Yeah, I mean, we drove my '60 Chevy across country for the first power tour in 1990 to here, he rode with me, so I was real lucky as a young guy to get hooked up, but that's when you had to go to California to do all the big events to get any notoriety because it was either Hot Rod Magazine or you showed up at the event, there was nothing else, so.
And print media was all there was.
Yeah.
That's all there was at the time, was print media. If you were gonna get any kind of notoriety or get your name out, it was print media and that was it. There wasn't the immediacy of social media or any of that there is available today. You had to get tight with those editors and guys like Greger, the editors of the magazine. If you were gonna get in print, that was the only way you know. Bobby probably wouldn't want nothing to do with Brandon if he wasn't Tree Robbers editor.
Brian, who?
Yeah.
No, Baskerville shot a car for me back in the seventies. He was the first one to do it, and it was a dude. He really was. He was talking about Boyd. I met Boyd when he worked at Disney. Shaporis was the one who introduced me to Boyd. They were doing that worldwide tour, him and Jim Jacobs and Jim Lee. And we were in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, and I was young, and Cindy and her were dating, and they thanked me for using their product. It was a 4R. And I'd seen them in magazines, and I thought this is the greatest thing in the world. You know, they're thanking me for doing that. And so we started going to California, and that's how I ended up meeting Boyd and Pete and all that bunch. And it was a hoot back then. You know, they did the first giveaway car for Las Vegas back, gosh, I don't know how long ago that been. It's way before your guys' time. I mean, yeah, I know. You know, the best advice I had was somebody told me to stick with what you know. And like I was telling these younger guys, don't try to copy Troy, don't try to copy Chip, don't try to stick with what you know, because if you try to copy those guys, you don't know what they're doing. It's some of the stuff. When I looked at your cars one time, you remember I told you, I said, how in the world did y'all do that? I have no earthly idea. And I think Mike said, well, how did you do yours? But you know, we see things different. And if you can't see it, you can't build it. As simple as that. And it's hard for me to see what Troy's doing, you know, and Troy's, I can't get in your head. I don't want in your head, but I can't get in your head. But if you can't see it, you can't build it.
Absolutely. Yep.
Chip can draw it, and we can all look at it, but you've seen my drawing, Lynn.
I have one of your drawings on the line.
I think one of the times that I had never met Roy Brizio, and I was just standing by Troy that day, he probably doesn't remember. But we were in Pomona, and I had never met Roy, and Chip goes, so Roy, what'd you bring? The Samester? Oh my God, we told the guy who builds the same car over and over, the Samester. I just couldn't believe he said it to him. So you talk about a tight industry.
Yeah, when we were trying to pick out a name for that speed star, Chip Foose had already used all the stirs. Because that was Ford stir and all of that speed stir.
Smooth stir.
Yeah, smooth stir. And it was
Star.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of them.
Jim, I know you hadn't followed a whole lot of advice through the time, but it was.
Well, good advice that he didn't follow, I don't know, that's all I can think about is testing people's cars, you know, and the police officer always said, slow down back there. And so I had a little convertible Mustang, we had a Coyote, and we were tuning the car. There was no seats in the car, and my tuner was on the right side, and I'm going down behind my shop at a 25-mile-an-hour speed zone, and I'm doing probably at least 120, 130 miles an hour. And I get to the end, and there's a Stock County sheriff sitting there, and he pulls up to the door, looks down in the car, and it says, no, he goes, no seat belts. I said, no seats. And luckily for us, we had painted a bunch of SWAT equipment for him, and he looks at me and goes, I'm going back to Baraboo now, and he just drove away. But it's good to know people.
It gets back to that relationship thing. I think that's a huge thing that any young builder can learn from it, that man, this is a relationship-driven industry in so many ways. I mean, between builder to builder and builder to manufacturer and builder to distributor and things like that, man. I mean, Bob, you know, I mean, about the loyalty and everything that you have with people. I mean, you know, I almost think you coined the phrase sometime about dance with the one that brung you. And
You got to, you know, I said something to my daughter one time, I said, you're loyal to a fault, and she says, how can you be loyal to a fault? Because she wouldn't want to do something, and she says, you're the same way, and I said, I am, I really am, because you do what you say you're gonna do, and people will remember. It may not be the fastest way to get where you're going, but I'm telling you, it'll last, you know.
Keep coming to these shows, I mean, you go here, you come, you think you got something. I mean, we all wanna win, right? I mean, it'd be crazy to say you don't wanna win, or you wanna beat these guys, but at the end of the day, you know in your heart when you've been kicked or not, but I'll tell you, coming here, it's like, it sparks you to just be better. I mean, it's like, oh my God, we gotta go home and buckle up, boys. This thing's coming fast. These guys are going by, it's like, why do they still come and look at our stuff? You see what's out there? So, yeah, come here, it's humbling, and it's cool to see what all you guys are doing.
This show is what changed our industry the most.
It changed the Ring Brothers right here.
You know, all these vendors out here that have brand new products for us. Back in the 70s and 80s, when I started building with my dad, whenever you needed something, you were in a wrecking yard.
Yeah.
Trying to find it.
Well, you had California though.
Yeah.
We had Wisconsin, 600 people. You had more in your block. You could go and take it off the car across the street. Well, they're still doing that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'll bet I was in a wrecking yard 3 or 4 times a week, growing up with my dad. You know, we needed all the pulleys off the front of a car, make the engine work.
I know where you can get some Panair parts.
I know somebody had a question, we've got a question out there.
Just curious how long you guys donated free work to complete the project or build a car that was more than maybe what the customer really wanted? And what epiphanies or learning lessons you guys could have gotten to make your business more profitable while still achieving the customer's dream?
I know for us, we've done a lot of work for free, and, I think in a way.
I think every builder has.
Yeah, I'm sure they have, but I think it's helped us tremendously, because you always wanna push what you're doing farther than somebody else is willing to take it, and I don't know, you just always seem to go that extra mile and hopefully make it up on the next one, but I think everybody that's been here and that's.
Every car that we do, we give a certain amount. I remember I did a car for a customer that didn't want the bottom done. And I said, I won't do it unless you do the bottom. And he said, well, I don't want it done. Well, I did the bottom.
Yeah.
I did the bottom because it came out of our shop. I remember back, Chip, when you and Boyd was doing cars, you never had to look under the car because you know what it looked like. If you don't do every car that good, then you're doing a disjustice to yourself, because you're only as good as the last
Well,
time you do it.
it also goes back to the customers that you have. It also goes back to you up front accepting something that you should or should not have accepted. I mean, like, if you know that he wants this and he wants to pay this, it's probably not.
Sometimes you're better off not to build it if it's something you don't wanna build. If it's not the direction you wanna go, you're better off not to build it. If you're trying to build your own career, then don't build something you don't wanna build.
It takes a while to understand that no is the easiest answer.
Yes.
But the give and take, like Roger asked, I mean, it's a give and take thing in the beginning especially. You know, what's your talent level to shop, what equipment do you have, how efficient are you? You know, so there's more give and take in the beginning. I think the more you keep the guys around, I've got 5 guys that have been with me 20 years or more, and we have all the equipment, so I feel we're pretty good at it now, but there's definitely some,
But you guys that's starting out that don't have the equipment that Troy's got or the Rings has got, you know, I don't have that equipment, so we build cars to the level that we can build cars to. We take old parts and put stuff, that's the reason I build a totally different car. Most of our cars don't have a lot of billet on, and it's because we don't do that. You know, I don't have the capabilities of doing it. I can job it out, but most of the time I don't do that, you know, so. But like the cars that you all do, I mean, that's your niche, it really does look good, it works.
And everybody's got their niche, and
You're right.
it doesn't have to have it. You prove that.
Well, I don't know about that, but you painted the car pretty black this last one. Sure is.
I'm gonna go back to, if you've given work away. I think anybody that takes pride in what they do will give some work away to end up with a product that you're proud of and represents what you can do.
Well, it's, you have one time for your first impression, and you're not gonna stand there like an event like this and tell everybody who walks up and, I can do that because the customer got solved, or you didn't wanna spend the money, you represent yourself, because most people don't know the customer.
And you heard that.
I've done that several times coming here.
And you heard that, the builder says, well, the customer wouldn't pay for that, well, you shouldn't
Should've brought it.
have finished it, you should've done it yourself.
I think the other thing that's important, and it's common with all y'all, that's a southern term, by the way, all y'all, and is that y'all have relationships with your customers. It's, everybody here, y'all have built multiple cars for the same customers. And that comes from building a relationship with your customer, and everybody has the same understanding going in of what you're gonna do and how that's gonna turn out. And that relationship is huge, I think. We talked about relationships earlier, but that relationship with your customer is huge too. I mean, that first meeting is an interview, I know y'all told me before, that first meeting, y'all talk about whether this is gonna be a marriage for a couple of years.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and if you're just doing it for the money, you're doing it for probably the wrong reason, we can say, Troy.
Absolutely.
Because you've got, like Roger was saying, how much do you give? You'll give a ton, you really will, and you need to get along with your customer, because you're gonna be married to that guy or that woman for 2 or 3 years, seems like anymore.
And never judge a book by the cover. I remember when George Boutique came up to me 100 years ago. I had no idea.
Walked up in his coveralls.
Yeah, but, yeah, it's, you don't ever know who you're talking to.
You're exactly right.
Yes, ma'am.
Can any of you guys tell us about any business management training experience you guys have?
Bobby, let's start with you on this one.
Can we go back to D-Day again?
Well, I just had a sales tax off. So I made it through that, so that's the best training that I can, absolutely not. I still buy hand tickets, we fax, we do this, we do that. Ask some of my customers how they get their bills. I tell
Well, you married, I guess, we all know the women run the business, so the guys just wanna do the work, and the women are the reason we can continue to work.
Good point. Mike, it's a good question, I don't think I made any money until my wife started doing the books. Cause we look at it like, oh, it's $100, you get away, that's too much.
Yeah.
80, and all that business, but, yeah, it's, you gotta put somebody smarter, for sure, than me in charge of that.
Yep, you do that answer, what you asked.
I wanted to hear that.
Yes, sir.
How do you see the customer base changing as the age group of the customers with that kind of disposable income, the next group comes
All
on?
my customers are still old.
I'm
All
sorry.
my customers are still old.
I think it's,
Well, I got one back there.
you just have to build later model cars, cause the money's still out there, it's just they're a little younger than the guys walking around with soft shoes like me.
It
Because
is amazing how
whoever thought you were
building
building
the money, they want their IRAC or their.
It's all about nostalgia. It's what, it's what turned you on. In most cases, it's about that. What turned you on when you were young. That's, as you get older, you have a little more money to spend in a lot of cases. If you wanna get back to that, you can just.
They want their high school car back.
I've got a couple customers, which we've shared that, the second generation, that their kids are my age. I got 3 guys that have kind of second generation. I think that'll be good. They're maybe not as good as fathers, but, pretty excited about it. And, it's funny, these things take so long to do, it's just always you stop thinking maybe once, oh, what are we gonna do next, you know, when you're already 3 or 4 years out, and all of a sudden it's just, there's no end to it. It's pretty amazing.
But Troy, who'd have thought a few years ago that you'd have a customer that would be willing to spend the money, spend the time, that third gen Camaro you offer
Yeah.
now? I mean, you know, you wouldn't have thought a few years ago that a third gen Camaro, that you'd have a guy that would be willing to put that kind of, allow you to put that kind of effort into work.
Yeah, it's, that's why we started 20 years ago on it. But it's,
Yeah,
you're right.
I knew when you started.
Yeah. He worked at General Motors 44 years. Yeah, it's crazy. The lucky thing with that car is it, right, it's nuts, but now that's the car now. I mean, we'd work on it a couple months and build 3 cars, you know, come back to it and this and that. But luckily, I don't think we missed the boat on it because it's kind of unique and, but that is the next group. And it's funny because of all the stuff we've built, whether it's Mondo race cars, regular cars, I don't care what it is, that if you put one picture of that third gen Camaro we're building, we're not big on the internet and social media, but 20 to 1 will kill anything we've ever built. It's unbelievable.
It is.
I mean, I can't even believe it. But it's, I don't know if it's a cult or that, but it's crazy. I rode to school every day in a V6 Merlin with my buddy. So, it's, but it is, I mean, I don't know.
Did he have a mullet?
It came with the car.
Jim and I both had IROCs 86.
Right?
Jim's racing, when he said IROC 2 on it.
Now.
I got T-tops, were they T-tops?
Yeah, they're T-tops. Jim's, he ran over his first time.
I had my car 2 days, washing it in my mom's front yard, so I took the T-tops out. Neighbor kid comes over, I couldn't quite reach it with a vacuum cleaner, I said, just pull that head a little bit, drove right over both T-tops. And then it started raining.
Bobby's gonna love the color we're painting that too, by the way.
Bob,
You're gonna love it.
you can kind of tell me what Alan Johnson said about
It's
what
not
they
so
told you.
It's whatever color comes on the toilet paper.
That's right, man. You don't really put a copy very often.
But you're seeing that too, Chip, I mean, how things have changed, you know, when we're doing, when you did your car. I mean, now it's changing, the market is definitely changing.
Yeah.
Walk around SEMA.
Yes. We brought a Myers Mace here.
Yeah. Yeah, and again, the level of work that you put on that Myers Max, I mean, a few years ago, you'd never seen anything like that.
It's a real simple build. It's just, you know, typically a Myers Max, the Volkswagen is the donor car. And the whole thing behind this car, what if a 356 Porsche was the donor car? But it's simple, it's the junk out body. It's exactly what you can get from, you know, it's all brand new parts.
Yeah.
It's just a different spin on it.
That's right, period.
Y'all see a future for the EV and customization?
Not in our shop.
I don't believe you should ever limit yourself from doing anything.
Yeah.
Because then you're putting walls up. I won't do that, you know? You never know where a great idea is gonna
There's
come from.
certain limits you've got to take.
You gotta know your limitations.
You're exactly right.
Clint Eastwood has said,
Yeah.
you've got to know his limitations. And Troy, you did a lot of different stuff, I mean, back when.
Yeah, well, I mean, like I said, there was a really actually awesome electric car at Bonneville, all-wheel drive Streamliner that went, she's high 300s. It was pretty impressive because you're used to being in Bonneville and you're at the starting line and you hear everything's noisy and it pulls away and you're standing there talking and you turn around and hear this, and he's gone. So it's interesting, the hydrogen powered stuff out there, so.
Hydrogen.
Yeah, that's the fun thing about Bonneville, I guess, that we spent half our year on probably is, just, run what you run, and, you know, the nice thing about Bonneville, I always say is, you either put up or shut up out there. You know, all this stuff we're doing here, and they all agree, it's just a matter of opinion. You know, out there, it's either you do it or you don't.
The clock.
That's why we really, you know, Jack drove his suit maker, I mean, that was a huge marketing thing for Ben and Jared, and,
240 miles an
Yeah.
hour plus with the AC on.
Jack was one of the first guys I called when George introduced me to Bonneville to do that, so, that's been a really good thing for us and, making things work. Now, the last two, really good customers that I've got are from Bonneville, so it's kind of interesting.
And a question over here.
Yeah, with the current hot rodding style that's going around and running, what makes you guys go wow and what makes you go no?
Can you repeat that? I did not hear what you said.
Sorry. So with the current hot rodding styling that's going on at the moment, what makes you guys go wow? So the new things are out, but also on the same thing, what makes you go no?
Bobby was impressed that Mike and Jim painted a car the right color for the first time.
Yeah, black.
Bobby Black.
You'll find out that's really gonna help you. It really is.
They might make it.
We didn't nail the stance yet, but it's fine.
I'll help you fix that thing a little while out there. We can make that torch.
It's tough when you walk around out there, there's so much, you know, as Mike was saying, there's so much stuff that's just so, you know, at the same level, kind of. Maybe when you start really looking at it, it's a little different, but just walking by, it's hard to get anybody's attention.
Yeah, you could bring this big show.
This place is, compared to 20 years ago, you can come in and really make a statement, you know, with a different style than what it was like.
Rapid prototyping has raised the level of quality so high because the precision of the parts is phenomenal. Where it used to be everything was handmade. Now you can design whatever you desire in the computer and a machine is making it and then we're painting it and finishing it and putting it on. So I would say, you know, the level of quality is so high that you can walk around here and just like, wow, that is beautiful, that is nice. I'm impressed by so many things that I see, but it's, what I'm looking for is what's next in the industry and what are we gonna see, and, you know. I actually have a customer here today, Rob and Jeannie Clardy's. I've wanted to do a project for 25 years, and what I've wanted to do is go back to the beginning of coach building. And when you bought a Duesenberg back in the late 20s, early 30s, you bought a chassis and you went to a coach builder and you designed and built that body. And I've always wanted to go back to that time and find a Duesenberg chassis and build, you know, design and build a body. And Rob has bought a Duesenberg, and that's gonna be the next project that we're doing. And I'm so excited to do this project. It's not all about the rapid prototyping and that, it's about, this project is gonna be how beautiful can we build a car and still make it look like it was built in the 30s.
Rapid prototyping in Tennessee, Bobby, it's just making the guys work faster.
I think to answer your question too, though, there's no right or wrong, it's just, I know some things are accepted more than others, obviously, right? I mean, cause there's so many different things and styles and maybe, like even this third gen thing we're doing, it's like, I always say it's not for everybody, but I think people appreciate the work in it, but it's definitely like, half of my customers would be like, yeah, they'll appreciate the work in it, they're like, yeah, that's not really us, you know, so I just think
I think what a cool thing that happened to us, I mean, we're talking about owners and building cars for people, and it's just amazing that you get an owner that comes and wants to build a car, and he asks you what you wanna build, not, it's not what he wants, it's what you wanna build, and it's pretty cool to have that.
Be smart, because you're building, and it's your job to, you know, we talk about that a lot, that if they're coming to you to build a car, then they're coming to build your style of car. And you need to lead them that way. Because if you veer off from it, it won't be the right thing.
So, you know, Ring Brothers with their Mustang and Camaro.
My daughter loves your cars.
Yeah, so now,
I love your daughter.
yeah.
Easy now.
She can drive the stick now.
I think another thing that's, I couldn't teach this kid how to drive a straight shift, because me and her would, it's awful, it was terrible. And she said, it's a piece of junk, it's free on the tree, you can't do this. Well, Chip said, I can teach her how to drive. She tore the transmission and the U joint out here, fix that Chevrolet too. She taught her how to drive. Yeah, I did.
Bobby said if she can drive it, I'll give it to her. And that was his 57, so she owns it now.
She does.
Okay, have a question?
I also work for customized parts designer at Japan, and I became designer inspired by Mr. Foose. And I want to ask that what's the point of the making customized car, keeping the originality of the base car and make a newer look? What's the point of the customized? Building like those show car.
Had a hard time hearing that.
I did too.
What's the point of which?
What's the point of keeping the originality of the base car and make it newer look?
Some people want to keep a patina type chassis or body, but put everything modern underneath so they can enjoy it on a daily basis. But when we're customizing cars, our goal is to build something that's more beautiful than the original car, and to just do something that nobody else has done yet.
But retain what the car was.
Yeah, don't lose.
Don't forget what you're starting with, but if you can enhance it in a way that hasn't been done yet, and make it more beautiful than the original car, what I'll typically do is I like to tailor fit things. I may reproportion it, but I want everything to look like it was a real precision built car. That's the approach that I take in most of my cars.
I think another thing that's really important is, and we talked about it, you talked about it earlier, about wanting to do it, and just listening to you talk about that coach built body you're gonna do, just the excitement in your voice, and when these guys are talking about things, I think as a younger builder, some guys starting out, you can't take a job to make a paycheck. If you're not excited, right, about the car you're gonna be building, or the build you're gonna be doing, it's gonna be hard for you to do your best work on that, because you talk about the hours you give away. And man, if you're gonna have to force yourself to be working on something, it's tough.
When you're building a car, you go home, you're still thinking about it. You know, for me, I'm doing sketches, I might be watching the news, but I'm creating, you know, oh, what if we do this with this hinge, or how can we do this, and I wanna do that. You don't go away from work. You eat, sleep, drink, and live that car until it's finished.
Just because you did it once doesn't mean it's right.
Very true.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff to throw away.
Chip cheats though, Bobby.
Yeah, he does.
And rendering of
He
it,
can
you
draw.
just build it and hope for the best.
I know, it ain't right, is it? It's not. And
I think
if
we
he
have a
draws
budget
it
for
right,
that, John.
he draws it wrong,
Right.
and then we build it, and you see what happens. No, if you know, Rick, you said if, we were talking earlier, that's what you brought this up about, that if you're going to build something, if you're going to go out and do something, whether it's a AMBR, the Battle of the Builders or whatever, you've really got to want to do it. I mean, you really got to want to do it, because my kid played college ball, and she always said, Daddy, if you really didn't want, you really don't need to play college ball if you really don't love playing ball, because it's a job, and if you're gonna set out to win something like that, and it takes every friggin' minute of the day, I mean, that's all you're thinking about is that. And if you ain't got that, then you don't even need to try it, simple as that.
You don't go to the Olympics as a part-time athlete.
No, you're right.
Right, I can speak from the manufacturer side of it on everything too. I mean, I love getting to help guys like you and help you know, what can we do that helps y'all out? And I mean, and that's exciting for us on the manufacturer side. I mean, John and I, we talk about, you know, the things that we're able to do to help builders. You know, you talk about the junkyards and everything. I mean, it's so nice now to be able to get good products that shortcuts some of those
No mud on
things.
your feet.
Right, and no mud on your feet. I know we had a question there, right?
So I come largely from the Concord world, but I want to get into the modification stuff like you guys do. At what point did the customer start going, hey, I want your style, rather than just going, can you make my car look like it used to be? Or did you always start out in the custom world and people bring it to you and you go, hey, I have an idea for your car?
I started out building my own cars, and the customers that I got came to me for the style of car that I was building, I think. And, you know, I've even talked about, we were here at SEMA years ago, and I said, Alan Johnson had that CUDA here, you remember that? And I just loved that CUDA, I thought it was just great. We were at dinner that night, and I had 3 or 4 of our customers. I said, man, I'd really love to do something like that. And they said, if you build something like that, then we won't be your customer. Simple as that. And that sort of shocked me, because they came to me for the style of car that I was building, whether it was right or wrong. But they came to me for my style, not for Alan's style. And me and Alan are great friends to this day, but he builds a totally different car. So my suggestion to you is, build what you know how to build. And if you get the customer, you'll get it. If you don't, then you don't get the customer anyway.
We did the same thing too. We started out building our own car.
And Joe Jim Petroni told me
Yeah.
at Columbus one time, there's them Ring Brothers over there, and that Mustang.
That's that little Mustang y'all brought that first year.
No, but it was honestly why when Jim and I got out, we did some restorations, but we don't do the Riddler cars either, because, no offense to any Riddler judges, it's about what's wrong with the car. Everything was judged on what was wrong. Restorations were judged on what was wrong.
The wrong gate
The
code.
wrong bin,
It's nice as it was,
but it was just, you kinda got wore out about, God, it's like if you went to a show and you saw a Boss Mustang show, and you open the hood, yeah, it's a Calypso Coral, it's whatever, but they were all, under the hood, I knew that they're all gonna look right? And the rules part, it just kind of burnt us out, and it was like, they might not like what we do, you know, but they can't say that is wrong, you know what I mean? So it was just.
They did that in high school enough.
Yeah. But no, I think that's probably the freeing part of building a car, is like, and we were just lucky enough to have people like the style we did. It's just so freeing to go to work and not have to study on, God, this texture's not right. Or can you imagine, you know way more about it than we ever. That's the reason, that's the burnout of.
Well, everybody up here builds a different style of car, do you not agree? And, you know, we know your style, they know mine, and we know Troy's, we know Chip's, and it's because you're doing what you know how to do. It was always like Boyd, and, you know, back Lobeck, right, Lobeck always had a cool looking car. I mean, you knew it was Lobeck's car, because the wheels and the stance and all that, and he couldn't turn a wrench on nothing, but he had an eye that was great.
But he tell you,
Oh, you're right, he could.
You know, it's interesting, I don't do restoration work, but it's just a simple business decision. You know, if you restore a car, you don't own anything. You only got paid for the hours you worked.
Yep.
But if we design and build something that is our vision, we own that design. And we can sell t-shirts with it, or die cast, or any of that stuff.
You can sell t-shirts, we can't. We give them away.
have y'all seen the shirt
We
trade I
pay
put
just to
on?
wear them at Troy's shop.
Yeah.
You know, somebody's going down there, we give them away.
Yeah. You got it.
I told you that guy that ran over my wife had one of your shirts on. It said Foosh all over it.
Well, my goal is to get paid 10 days or 10 years from now for what I'm doing today.
Bobby had some customers like that, it would take 10 years from then too.
I got some that died that's still open. Don't I, George?
John, you have a question?
Yeah, in your career, what is the largest setback you've had, and then how did you bounce back from that?
Well, this place burnt down.
You're still bouncing.
I mean, I lost everything I had in about 4 or 5 hours, and I still hadn't bounced back. It was hard. It was lightning hit the shop, and we lost 14 cars, tools, concrete, and everything. So that was hard. And me and my wife, we sat there and looked at it. We built back in 45 days and haven't looked back since. So in some ways, that probably was the best thing that happened to me, because I wouldn't be sitting here if that hadn't happened. That happened in '98. And I knew these guys, or I knew Chip and Troy at the time, but that caused me to go back to work again, and, just got back at it, and so that was the biggest setback that I've had.
Well, we had a 37 Ford that we built, I think we showed it one time. And then we went up to Canada, Moose that works for me, and we're up in Quebec. And I'll never forget that call. He woke up the next morning and the truck, trailer, car and the trailer was gone. And that was a car we just finished, so that was an eye-opener. That really makes you think of the other side of the business, which actually Bobby, when he had his setbacks, I remember talking to him about, he had insurance and you know, when you're hauling the cars and all that, it's all the stuff you don't think about, and,
But you know, we just finished Gay Wilson's car, we had just had dinner with him that night, him and his wife. And Cindy called him at the motel and came, and he watched his car burn down in the garage. I mean, it was sitting there with feet into it, and it burnt to the ground, so. Boys came and got some pieces, some more Halloran wheels and took it hung in his office and had reality check put under it, so.
so that's a big unforeseen, and you're definitely getting into it, and that's all the parts that, you know, you don't think about, and, luckily, it worked out, our customer got paid, on the technicality and insurance, but it took forever, it took 8 years of messing around, and then we just, recently, a year ago, got a call 16 years later, and there was a chop shop in Quebec, and this car had our name on it enough where, and it was kind of a weird color, that a guy, police officer called from Quebec and said, hey, are you guys missing a car? Yeah, 16 years ago. He didn't realize that it was a different thing, but we actually got it back in pieces. But yeah, pretty interesting.
There was a saying my mother always told Mike and I, you guys have probably heard it 100 times, but you can get over the dog, you can get over the tail.
For me, it was actually, the loss of my father.
He was a big part, yeah.
Yeah, that's
He was my best friend.
Likewise, yeah, it's a big hurdle.
But it took me about 4 months to be able to stay in the shop a full day.
Again, it goes back to the people, that's the cars department, it's the people.
You know, Troy's in the same boat, he lost his dad and they worked together. You know, when we did the show at Nashville, I did a banner behind there for all the people that has gone on before us, that we wouldn't be here without those people.
Yeah.
And the sad part about it is there's gonna be more on the list this year. And we don't know who they're gonna be, but those guys were great. Your dad was great too. Jack was one.
He was the life of the
He
party.
was a super.
It was boring when he left.
Yeah.
I looked at it, not to interrupt you, but I looked at it a little different way, because I spent probably every day of my life, maybe other than, I'm gonna tell you, 100 days, with him, because my grandfather had a house right next door to my dad's automotive shop, so I was with him every day. And I didn't go to college, so I worked for him as a mechanic out of high school, and then he ended up working for me for about 10 years at the end, but made a lot of great, driving around drinking. A lot of great friends in the industry and stuff, so it's, the only ones that lost out, I mean, I lost out, but my kids are the ones that lost out in that deal, but, I always looked at it the other way, as I was very lucky, because all these kids that come work for me are young guys that, they move, you know, cross country to work, build cars. I never had the guts, I guess, to leave or whatever, and they come and work for me, and, I have a lot of respect for them for leaving their family and coming to do it, so. And we were lucky with Chip's dad, I mean, him and his dad, the car Mike referenced earlier, the Predator. Chip and his dad came in on a weekend, and me and him and my dad, and Chip and his dad, we chopped that car on a weekend back in '93 probably.
Yeah.
So that was fun. That was good
Yeah,
times.
it was a great weekend.
Yeah.
Did the same thing with the sniper.
Yep.
Probably Alloway
Yeah,
shop.
yep. Great story. So it's,
Good fun stuff.
we've had a lot of good opportunities.
I grew up with my dad in started going to the shop with him when I was 3. But it was always, you know, when I built a car, the first person that I wanted to share it with was my father. And the first car that I didn't get to share with him was the Jaguar that we brought here to SEMA. And I remember finishing that car, just thinking,
Yeah, empty hole a little bit.
where is it?
I think, you know, Troy, with your dad, I remember, I just got a quick story that I felt like I'd arrived a little bit in the industry when I got a nickname from your dad. Because your dad had nicknames for everybody he liked.
Yep.
What
And
was your nickname?
Rickaroo.
I guess
And
it's
it
better
was-
than
it-
ringworm.
Yeah. That was it, it was on Power Tour.
Yep.
It was on Power Tour and all that, and man, and that's another thing, is all the times y'all, you used the cars you go, man, I remember being on Power Tour with Jack and
Yeah.
with Sniper, and
Yeah.
y'all and Sniper and everything, man, going faster than we should have been going up through those mountain
Yeah.
passes and all of that back then, and that was.
So one way to get better, you gotta go out there and stare at the temperature gauge for about 500 miles, or you get out, you can't walk because the pedals are in the wrong place, and so it was a lot of good testing and learning days, for sure.
Jack, we were at the, Hard Rock, had a party up the top of Hard Rock here years ago, and me and him was standing there looking, there was this pool down there, off in another hotel. He said, you know, little Jack's got new plumbing, he could pee all the way down, all the way into that pool. I would never forget him telling me that, he had new plumbing, he said.
Good times.
One thing I do wanna add that's really important too, that the rings can relate to and everything is, man, protect your computers. Protect with what your employees do and everything these days. There's things going on out there, people can hack into your computers and they can destroy your business in a heartbeat. And man, if you're not aware of what's going on and you're not taking care and making sure your employees don't click on things that they shouldn't, because it's getting more sophisticated all the time. And I'll tell you, there's been a whole lot of this in the industry in the last couple of years, and affected some large companies that should know better. And, I mean, Mike and Jim, y'all went through that with a payment that was basically hijacked.
That we emailed them the wiring instructions, and, somebody somehow got into our computer, sounding just like Nancy, you know, cheers the whole end saying, and said, no, that's a different account, send it to this bank at this routing number, and they did, and it was not a good situation.
Cindy, when we get a computer.
I don't know if they can hack your fax.
Probably still uses his fingers.
Yes, I do.
Do we have any other questions? We're gonna have to, yes, sir.
So I know it varies if you guys are top builders, but normally how long does it take to do a project, and what is like the range that they?
Chip does one in 7 days.
We did a lot of them in 7 days.
Some take 7 days, some take 6 years.
Yeah.
Depends on what you're doing.
What is the range, like, I mean, I know you guys are top builders and stuff like that, for the cars.
I don't even charge to sign a car.
Man, that's a question that they're really not the answer to, because it's.
Yeah, it depends on what you're building and how well are you building it. Are you building a car to go compete for the Riddler Award, or are you just putting graphics on a brand new car? There's a different price for whatever you're doing.
Those Riddlers are in the millions, obviously.
Yeah. But it's ours, it all comes down to ours. You know, when, next year at the Grand National Roadster Show, Troy's gonna be bringing out in bare metal, the 36 Roadster they're building, and the hours in that car already. I mean, when that car was in Columbus, it's just amazing, and the hours in that car already, and it's nowhere near finished.
No, it's just depends how far you go, like that particular car, we're building a 36 Highwood that Ford never made, so it's, the only thing that makes the, transmission housing, marketed for us, and, the engine block, and the rest of the tires, the rest that we made. you know, it's all, just everything, you know, it's, the design time, you know, Chip knows, and, the fabrication, I mean, it's nothing to have 15,000 hours and something like that.
We had
Do the math.
We had over 22,000 in one of our regular builds, hours.
At $10 an hour, that's not.
How much is that, Bob? It's at $10 an hour.
Yeah, that's just how much you're losing now.
When we get a computer, I will let you know.
Rick, there's a gentleman in the
Oh,
back
yes, sir.
there.
That's John McLeod.
One of my heroes, John Patera, how about a story?
Yeah.
Wow.
How many stories you wanna hear?
And how many of the ladies gonna have to leave first?
I'll tell you a little story about John. John was one of my idols, still is to this day. And John had what he called his leukemia list. And that's the people that he wishes would get leukemia and die. I got on that list somehow. And I hated being on that list because I had so much respect for him. But we worked together at Boyd's, and every morning when he would come in, "Good morning, John," and he wouldn't even look at me, he just walked straight in his office. And this lasted for about 5 months. And one day I'm in the paint shop, and I'm walking back over to the hot rod shop, and I see him pull in his Cadillac, and he's got a flat tire. And I see him pull in, gets out of his car, walks right in. I go in, I grab a jack, you know, this is during the time that he won't talk to me. I grab a jack, I go over, jack up his car, pull his wheel off, take it over to the wheel shop, grab a new tire, put it all on, put his whole car back together. And he never knew I did it. Put it all back together, and then I put the jack back and everything, so his car's fixed. He never asked me to, he just put it back, but I took care of it. And at the same time, there was a Little John Speedster, the motorcycles that he built. I was building one for myself, and when I got on his leukemia list, you know, he wasn't gonna help me. I traded my bike to Boyd, and he built the chassis for my hemisphere. That was the trade that Boyd and I made. And then I was finishing the bike for Rob Medulo out of New York, who owns the bike to this day. And when that bike was getting completely finished, I was down on the floor and I was doing some little adjustment. Robbie was gonna come in that day for the bike, and I'm working on it. And I see Little John's boots walk up, and I know he's standing right next to me. And I didn't look up at him, but I kept working, and then I hear John says to me, he says, "You know, I built a really cool bike." And I looked at him and I said, "Yes, you did." And what I did is I took his chassis and I built my own body and all the parts on it, and I had done that before I traded it to Boyd. He says, "You know, I built a really cool bike." I looked at him and I said, "Yes, you did." He says, "You made it better."
Oh.
And we were best friends after that.
That was a compliment from John.
And I said, "Why did you put me on your list?" He says, "I just needed to hate somebody for a while." And then he says, "Thanks for fixing my tire."
John was always, he was always nervous to be around him because you didn't know, he always they always said if you brought something to the table, John respected you. If you didn't, he had really nothing to do with you. But me and Cindy was at Indy one time back in the 80s, and I came in with a long 3350, and John was doing at a Goodyear trailer. He was watching the race, and he heard us coming up. He kind of opened the door of the trailer and came out and motioned us in. The little upholstery guy that we all know was with us. And he idolized John, absolutely idolized him, thought he walked on water. And John was looking at the car and was trying to talk, well, Bobby was behind going, and John turned around and wanted to know, "Who's your effing parrot?" And it didn't like to kill him, it really did. I looked down and I thought, "Oh Lord, what is it doing?" But he was like that sometimes, wasn't he? It was a dude, but I always respected him, what he would do.
When he left Boyd's, he went and started he was back in his own shop building parts. And he called me one day, he says, "I need you to come look at something." And I said, "All right." So I run over there to his shop, And when I walk in, he's unbolting this billet aluminum front axle, first billet aluminum front axle that we ever been built. And wow, that is really cool. And, he says, what would you change on it? And he just designed this thing, it looked just like a cast iron axle. He said, what would you change on it? I said, nothing, it's really cool. He said, no, if you were gonna build another one, what would you do? And I did a few sketches, I would have tapered it out as it came back, and I would have done it as like maybe a circle and hollow out the middle, so it's not just an I-beam like a traditional I-beam. Let's redesign it and make something really cool. And he finishes, as I'm talking to him, he's finishing unbolting this thing off the table, and he picks it up and he throws it across the room into this pile of aluminum parts. He goes, what are you doing? And he says, you're right, I need to change it. I said, well, what are you gonna do with that? He says, that's scrap. Okay, so, I said, well, I'll buy it from you, it's not for sale. So he says, go away now. So he calls me about 2 weeks later and he says, hey, do we have any of the Little John Speedster chassis still at the shop? And we have like 3 of them. And I said, yeah, there's like 3 of them. He says, well, go find out what they want for it. And I said, what they want for one. I said, well, I'll get you one, but I already know what it's gonna cost you. He says, what's it gonna cost you? I said, it's gonna cost you that axle that you took off. He says, you got 30 minutes to be here with the frame. So I went over, I offered him $500 for the frame, and then I took it over to John's. And he hands me the axle, and I'm thinking, cool, I got the axle. And he says, no, that's not it. And he walks over to his cabinet, he opens the cabinet, and he pulls out these, the spindles. But they're not just spindles. He machined the calipers into the spindle with the steering arm all as one piece. He said, these go with it too.
He was amazing.
What John taught me was, he says, don't just design one piece to do its job. He said, everything you design, think of one piece doing 2 jobs or 3 jobs. And that's what I learned from John.
That's what race cars are about.
Yeah. Really fun stuff. But then
Do you still have the axle?
I have that axle, those spindles, and if you ever saw his last little billet aluminum car that I helped him with the design on that, I have one of those axles also with all the spindles. So I have both the original one and the new one that we redesigned together.
Yeah. Cool. Nice story.
They're gonna throw us out of here pretty quick, we'll take one more.
So speaking of having a vision for a car and proceeding to build the car, depending on how long that actually takes, I've got my own car I'm 10 years into it now, and initially I was finding stuff in the junkyards. There's products now. How often or how quickly will you guys change your vision because of products, or do you stick to your initial vision or whatever happens to be the build you're doing?
If it doesn't change the style of the car, I might use something new, but if it changes the style of the car, I probably wouldn't use it. I'd probably stick to what I was doing. Anytime you change, it costs money, you change it. I mean, generally, when we start, we finish it that way.
We always get to a point, a lot of stuff where we get it, we don't do a lot of renderings of things, we kind of get it to a point and then step back and look at it, kind of let the car tell you what it wants a little bit. I think if it's some of the stuff, if it's too pretty turned in the front, then at least for us, it doesn't work right.
I got some advice from another designer one time, Larry Erickson. He said, when you come up to bat, don't try to hit a home run every time. Just swing the bat and get it done. He says, if you're trying to hit a home run, you're going to stay at base or home plate forever.
Larry has some pretty good designs through the years with Godzilla, the Mustang, Lumaku.
Smoothster.
Yeah.
Smoothster was a cool car. Larry had designed that. It was being built by Craig Knapp. His metal work was phenomenal. We got the car about 60% done at Boyd's, and then I worked with Larry because it was his, vision. So everything that I did on the car was with Larry's blessing. I made sure that it was still his design, and it was phenomenal to work with. Just to work off of what Craig Knapp had started. But Larry and I had met years earlier, because when I went to Art Center College of Design, he was my first trans teacher. And I moved from Santa Barbara to go to school, but he lived in Santa Barbara and drove down to Art Center once a week to teach. And we had a lot of the same friends, and we've been friends ever since. But to finish that project with Larry was a lot of fun, and I've done several cars with Larry since. But he has been one of my idols for a long, long time.
And a great guy. Analysis paralysis, we say that in the shop a lot. Some guys will analyze something so much they get paralyzed and can't get past it, and they can't ever do anything, so, yeah. That's where teamwork comes in. Get somebody else's opinion, and like, you may get stuck on something so hard, that it's the end of the world, and we'll just, no one even know the difference.
How long have you been working on your car?
I've had my truck since I was 8. I've been building that. I'm 28 now. We've done quite a few other things in the meantime, with my personal project being, things have changed a lot since I started. Products are actually available for front suspension that didn't exist when I started, so.
So it's mostly products you're changing, not the idea of the
Not
build.
the idea. So. Different.
It makes it expensive when you do that.
We've gone beyond our hour, and I want to thank you all for showing up and for spending your time here and everything. And please give these guys a hand. You won't get a group like this together very often, and so I hope you enjoyed spending some time with them, because there's some good stories that you don't hear very often. So thank y'all. Have a great SEMA, and make sure you let SEMA know how much you enjoyed this. Have a great week.
Thanks for coming out.